right, guys, and of course my camera's not working. Oh man, they took me out. The storm took me out, guys. Um, but yes, we're trying again. Let me. There we go. Okay, it's a little troll there. It's a little troll, but yeah, we're trying again here. Thank you guys so much for being here again. I did have my stream go live earlier at the usual time, but you wouldn't know if you were to look at my screen right now. It looks perfectly bright outside, perfectly nice. Um like an hour ago, a massive storm just rolled in, literally out of nowhere. And it was causing my internet all types of problems, just all types of problems in general. Like it was getting like warnings, a bunch of notifications on my phone. I'm like, I think I'm gonna have to end the stream and come back. And luckily it's okay now. It's like sunny out. So I will add to that before I abruptly ended that stream, we did get our memberships up to 7 for the day. So thank you guys for that. And yeah, so we're gonna have a proper stream now. We're gonna get into these topics properly. As you can see, the title of today's stream is "Does PlayStation have serious competition from Xbox now?" And we've talked about this a little bit throughout the past week or so, but I don't think we've had like a dedicated topic on it, and I don't think we really, I don't know, just honed in on that aspect of this entirely. But here's the thing: it's actually kind of interesting that I had to redo the stream and restart it because within that time, I actually came across an article that was making the rounds from Tweaktown. And the article's title reads, "Microsoft may abandon the Activision merger if the federal judge grants the FTC's request." And this is really random and interesting because I've seen a lot of people jumping on this. And a lot of people are basically saying that, like, this could be like a sign that this deal is not going to happen and it's not going to go through, and that Microsoft may actually be preparing to potentially, as it says, abandon it. So I figured this is actually going to be relevant to the conversation because, one of the things we did talk about is the fact that because Microsoft's show is so good and because there's so much excitement surrounding Microsoft, does Microsoft actually need Activision Blizzard to compete? So we'll dive deep into this conversation. I see Cobb Sanity. Thank you so much, man. Let's get a shout out. Let's get some W's in the chat for Cobb Sanity, choosing to become a channel member. I really appreciate that, buddy. That brings us up to 8 members on the day. And this is a good opportunity for me to let everybody know. If you want to support what I do here, as I say, guys, consider becoming a channel member. Consider gifting channel memberships if you are already a channel member. And we still have people continually gifting memberships here. It's a great way to grow the community, to grow the membership community, and a great way to fund me directly. I am fan funded, so thank you guys for all your support. I also will say one more time, I said this earlier, but that stream is no longer up, so I'll say it here again. I do have a members-only video releasing tomorrow on Saturday. This is going to be my first ever members-only Q&A session. So if you are a channel member, please look forward to that. And if that's something that you might be interested in, and please, by all means, consider becoming a channel member. So thank you for that, Cobb Sanity. And let me see, we have Zero Connection, a member for 2 months, saying, "Looking well, MBG. Good to see the Timefall didn't get you. Any word on a review embargo for Final Fantasy 16? Do we have a date for reviews?" Well, right now, I don't think we have an actual date set for reviews. If we do, I'm not aware of it. I haven't heard anybody talk about it yet. I don't know if it's been revealed. Gavin House in the chat is saying he thinks it's on the 20th. That would make sense to me. That's 2 days before it launches. So, I mean, I guess the assumption is that Square is feeling relatively confident in Final Fantasy 16, right? I think Sony's feeling confident in it. I think that I think it's likely it's going to review really, really well. I don't see it reviewing poorly. So I would anticipate that Square is going to want to get the reviews out there a little bit ahead of the launch, because if it reviews really well, that positive word of mouth is ultimately going to translate into more sales. So yeah, I don't have an exact date for you, Zero Connection, but yeah, it could drop any time this week, honestly, or this upcoming week. So we'll see about that, man. And thank you for the chat. All right, so before we dive into this conversation, all right, let me frame it this way. Does PlayStation have serious competition from Xbox now? Well, that really depends on who you ask, doesn't it? It really does, because I've already seen a bunch of different responses. I've seen responses from people saying that, yeah, not it. Honestly, the way I've seen people reacting lately, not necessarily on the channel, but just generally speaking, you would think that Sony doesn't just now have competition from Xbox, but Xbox is now above them, that Xbox now has the leg up on them. And that to me is a bit strange. That's way too much of a stretch. Like that's not a thing. I know people want to believe but literally right now, that's not a thing. We have to kind of wait to see if it will become a thing. But if there's one thing that I have learned in covering the video game industry when it comes to people, right? Gamers, the media, everybody in between, is that people forget things very quickly. People forget things very, very, very quickly. If you put the new shiny thing in front of their face, they forget everything. Not everybody does, but generally speaking, you put the new shiny thing in front of their face and people forget. And that works both ways. That works for both Microsoft and Sony. And right now, I think we're just seeing the after effect of Microsoft just put the big shiny thing in front of everybody's face, and everybody is just infatuated with it. And that's normal, right? Like, I'm not here to say that you shouldn't be infatuated with it. You should. That's the point. That's why they have these shows. But I do think it's kind of crazy, honestly, that people are at, I don't expect, especially Xbox fans, to kind of come out and just suddenly say, "Hey, I'm impressed. That was the best Xbox showcase I've ever seen. Xbox made the comeback. Xbox is on top again, baby." And then follow that up by saying, "But you know what? They did release Redfall last month, and they went a year and a half without any games, and they've just continually dropped the ball." Like, I don't expect the Xbox fan base to do that. All right, um I'm not saying that people should be like that. But I'm not necessarily that Xbox fan, right? So I will acknowledge that. Skips, you're saying, "I will let you know right now, MBG, that the PI, is it the PL or is it a PI or PL? I don't know, is more likely right now to get thrown out. So I think the 29th will get an announcement for ABK closing." Yeah, originally I was going to maybe hinge the entire stream on this topic, but then I realized that I'll be honest with you, like, I don't even know that I want to read this. It's a long article, and it's like, I could read this entire article from Tweaktown about how Microsoft may abandon the Activision merger if the federal judge grants the FTC's request, but right now it's looking likely they're not going to grant them their request, and it's just very much in the same situation it has been in this whole time, which is maybe it'll go through, maybe it won't, but just for the sake of just so people understand, I guess, like for clarity's sake, I'm going to read through it and let you guys know what's going on. But I guess what I was just trying to say is that to me, it seems kind of absurd with the way people have been behaving this past week. And I'm not just talking about Xbox fans. All right. And maybe some people would group me in this, but you see the vocal minority on both sides kind of screaming, right? Like this past week, you've had the Xbox. I mean, dude, it is painful to look at the Xbox diehard fan base right now, man. It's painful because it makes me cringe. And I guess maybe this, it goes the other way as well. But dude, like, I get that these guys got a W. Like, I get that these guys got, like, it's a big week. But it's just like the way some people are acting. It's like, my lord, I really hope Microsoft doesn't step on another rake, because these guys are gonna fucking, oh my god, it's gonna be bad. If Microsoft steps on another rake, a lot of people, again, just kind of brushing the past under the rug, and I get it. But I feel like when we're having the bigger picture conversation, when we're asking the question, like, okay, so at the end of the day, what are the results here? Are the results Microsoft is now serious competition to Sony? Well, I'm kind of torn on this. A part of me feels like yes. But there's also another part of me that's still just, when I say yes, a bunch of things pop up in my mind to remind me. But it's like, dude, this is Xbox. Like, this is Microsoft. So I feel like I'm at kind of a crossroads with this question. Like, the only way Xbox can seriously compete with PlayStation going forward is if this is truly, genuinely, a new era of Xbox. And that's a tough thing to just buy into, right? Like a new era of Xbox, that's it, just like that. And just like that, PlayStation has intense competition. They have serious competition. I don't know. But my gut tells me I think so. I do think so. Is Sony on the decline? Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. What do you think, guys? Do you think Sony's on the decline? And when we say decline, I guess we have to be a little bit more specific. Like, is Sony, are they less relevant? Are they going to lose sales? Are they going to have a harder time gaining attention? Somebody's saying yes, but mostly everybody's saying no. Saying you switching sides right now? Question mark. No, I have no desire to go to Xbox. If I did, I would just go to Xbox, This isn't necessarily about me. I mean, obviously, I'm going to give my opinions and I'm going to give my thoughts here and my takes, but, it's, if this was just about me and whether I was planning to go to Xbox, I would have titled the stream, like, is MBG going to go to Xbox? Arnie Vesper, thank you, man. You're saying, I love my PS5, but we'll get an Xbox Series X for Starfield. And that right there is the interesting part to me. That right there is why when I asked the question, does PlayStation have serious competition now? My answer is, I think yes, because the amount of people, and I know it's just the internet, like I know it's just comments, and as we talked about yesterday, you can't really base your perception of reality on internet comments, but it is still noteworthy, in my opinion, that I've seen more people than ever before saying something similar to what Arnie Vesper just super chatted here. Like, hey, I'm a PlayStation guy. I love playing on PlayStation. That's my main platform. But yeah, I gotta play Starfield. So I gotta go buy an Xbox, or I gotta go subscribe to Game Pass, or whatever it might be. And it's interesting to me because it's like, I've also been seeing some like opinion pieces and articles come out There was this really good article. I got to see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find it real quick. The title was just too good. It was Here it is. Of course it's Forbes. Forbes. They have oh my god. This website is a nightmare with these ads. What the frig? Forbes has this article out that they published yesterday titled Starfield feels like the first Xbox exclusive in ages that will pain PlayStation fans. And, I won't lie, like my initial reaction, like my knee-jerk reaction to that title is like, whatever, man. Like, sure, whatever you say, dude. Just sounds like like desperation to me, right? Like that's what you want. You want PlayStation fans to want Starfield, but I don't know. But then I think about it, I'm like, but actually, I don't know. That might be true. Not for everybody. Like, I'm a PlayStation fan. Am I in pain? I'm in a lot of pain. No. But am I in pain that Starfield isn't coming to PlayStation? No. I'm really not. I just... I've talked about how I feel about Starfield personally, but I could tell, like, there are people that are actually kind of a little bit bothered by the fact that it's not coming to PlayStation. And we've dived into that conversation numerous times where it's like, well, Microsoft, they paid for Starfield, and they see you have to imagine they probably canceled the PS5 version at some point. So it's like, yeah, I think it's understandable that, like, it's a big Bethesda RPG that was otherwise going to be multi-platform. I think you kind of understand why, like, some PlayStation fans would. I feel like it's an exaggerate, like, it's pretty hyperbolic. Like, they're in pain. Like, okay, I don't think they're in pain, but they're probably annoyed, is what they are. Planet Schlorpian, thank you for the $10 super chat, my friend. You're saying, we're sick of Star Wars as some people may be. Video games in the franchise will be welcome for a while because we were in the dark ages of Star Wars games for like 10 years until Fallen Order in 2019. That's actually it's a little bit random to the conversation, but that's actually also a great point, Planet Schlorpian, because yeah, when EA had that 10-year licensing agreement to exclusively make Star Wars games, every Star Wars game would only come from EA, and not every Star Wars game that came out of EA was bad, but we saw like how it just left very little. There was just it got kind of stale, right? Like it got kind of boring, where it's like we're just getting Star Wars games from the same publisher. Like, hand this IP around to other studios, to other publishers, and see what they can do. And I am kind of glad that they're doing that because, yeah, like you see what Ubisoft is doing with Star Wars. I don't think EA would have made a game like that. It's like a Ubisoft Star Wars game. So, KOTOR remake. Sony tried to apparently lock that game down. We'll see what happens to that, but I think that's a good point, Planet Schlorpian. So, for as much as I say I'm like tired of Star Wars, I do agree that we are past the dark ages, seemingly, for Star Wars games. So, and there's even more in development that we don't know about yet. So we'll see, man. We'll see what happens. Saying a KOTOR remake is DOA, you think? Maybe. And Arnie Vesper, again, you're saying, I won't get Game Pass, though, LOL. I want to own Starfield. And I think that's perfectly reasonable, man. I think Starfield, the interesting thing about Starfield in particular, knowing it's going into Game Pass, is that, like, it's a game that people are clearly, when they talk about it, they're like, yo, I'm going to spend so many hours in this game, like so much time. I could see that factoring into people making a decision, like, do I want to buy and own this game, or do I just want to rent it each month? And I think a lot of people are just going to decide, I'd rather just buy it and own it. Because, like, I'm going to be playing this game for like a year, for many years to come, maybe. So I could see that being a game that people just decide to buy. And that's interesting to think. But yeah, let's read this article real quick from Forbes. So Again, the title is Starfield feels like the first Xbox exclusive in ages that will pain PlayStation fans. This is the dawn of a whole new era. Not that Xbox has suddenly done a complete 180, but we are now living in an age where its $7 billion purchase of Bethesda is coming home to roost, and for the first time in history, one of its genre defining games will simply not be coming to PlayStation. That game, of course, is Starfield, the almost unbelievably vast space exploration title from Bethesda. Its first fully new IP in ages, joining classic franchises like Fallout and The Elder Scrolls. Sure, there's no guarantee Starfield will be good or have a smooth launch, but the odds for its quality are in its favor, given the impact the last several Fallout and Elder Scrolls games have had on the industry. This is not some wild multiplayer MMO experiment like Fallout 76, and it looks like Bethesda's biggest, most ambitious game ever by quite a margin at that. This is not some Xbox is about to blow PlayStation out of the water post, but I do think this is a situation PlayStation players have not found themselves in often, not for years, I'd argue. One where they are missing a genuinely massive game that is not available on their best selling console. Microsoft has produced great games, sure. The Forza series is always stellar. Hi-Fi Rush was a surprise hit. Gears has a long history. But in terms of its biggest blockbusters, you have not exactly seen PlayStation fans bemoaning the fact that they can't play Halo Infinite, or certainly not Redfall more recently. This feels like the first time both A, PlayStation fans are genuinely envious of a game coming to Xbox, despite what fanboy wars about frame rate and such may say, and B, something does indeed feel like it was taken away from PlayStation as a result of an enormous Microsoft purchase. Even future games like Fable and Perfect Dark aren't in that category as Microsoft IPs. And Obsidian's Avowed isn't anywhere close to this scale. It's like imagining Skyrim, which has sold 60 million copies in 12 years, not coming to PlayStation. Fallout 4 sold 12 million copies in 24 hours back in 2015. Starfield will not put up that level of sales numbers because it's being offered day one on Game Pass, though it's already topping the Steam charts via pre-order. This is the main difference, of course, that Microsoft exclusives are not Xbox exclusives in the traditional sense, as they also come to PC. That certainly is a way for PlayStation players to get their hands on the game in a way that Xbox players cannot grab God of War or Ghost of Tsushima at launch. And yet, I do not think we can operate under the assumption that PS4/5 owners all also have the kind of gaming PCs needed to run Starfield effectively. A portion do, I'm sure, but a small portion. And so the point stands with a lot of PlayStation-only players being left out. Then, of course, there are cloud-based purchases, but the tech is still a bit unproven. This is, of course, what Microsoft wants. Despite all its talk about opening gaming up to more players, that's almost always just about their cloud gaming ambitions, which can be run on a lot of devices. They very much do want a roster of Xbox exclusive games to rival PlayStation's well-received big selling exclusives. And they only do not want it when it comes, but that's worded really weirdly. And they only do not want that when it means things like promising they won't take away Call of Duty from PlayStation so their Activision deal can go through. But Starfield, The Elder Scrolls 6 eventually, absolutely not. Your additional places to play, there are PC and the cloud, not PlayStation. Not at all. PlayStation players can pretend otherwise, but if Starfield comes out and is as big as Fallout or Elder Scrolls when it releases, it is going to be a huge pain point not to have access to it on their console of choice. There are some workarounds, but many won't be able to employ them, and Microsoft wants this to become the norm, not the exception, as they try to keep pace on the first-party front. So this article, I think, was definitely a good read. I think this article was a good read and appropriate for what we're talking about here today, because if we are in agreement with what this article writer is saying, who actually wrote the article, it was Paul Tassi. I think he brings up a great point. You're saying that was such a biased article. Come on, MBG. Well, I don't know that it was biased as much as it's true, right? And this is, I've been trying to explain this to people for a long time, and I've gotten dunked on, I've gotten shit on, I've gotten made fun of, the whole 9 yards for saying things like this. But it's so funny to me that now we're reading articles like this. And suddenly, mostly everybody is like, yeah, yeah. What this article writer just said is it's been ridiculously obvious since the start. And it's what I've tried to explain to people over and over again, that like Microsoft is not out here to play nice with Sony or the PlayStation player base. Microsoft does not care about the PlayStation player base. They do not care whether or not they get a game. The only thing Microsoft cares about is winning. And they win by taking games away and keeping games off of PlayStation. Period. End of discussion. That's how it's always been. That's how it will always be. And I am so sick and tired of there being people out there that try to run with this nonsensical take that, no, Microsoft isn't as bad as Sony. They're nicer. They want to put their games in more places, and Sony doesn't. But what they always fail to mention is that, no, Microsoft wants to put their games on more devices through their own application, through their own service. You know? And so at the end of the day, what this article is saying is it's true. I mean, you could, maybe it's a biased article, but it's true. And the reason why keep in mind, I'm not saying the title is true. I think the title is obviously kind of clickbait, like PlayStation fans are in pain. It's not that PlayStation fans are pained by this. It's that, dude, for the first time in a long time, Microsoft has a game that is going to make many PS5 buyers and owners have to sit back and really ask themselves, well, am I going to go support Xbox now to play this game? Am I going to go buy an Xbox? Am I going to go subscribe to Game Pass? Whatever it might be. And I think for quite a few people, the answer to that question is yes. You know? And it's just so, to me, it's ultimately going to work out to be a good thing. And I've talked about this, like people who have tried shitting on me because I've been in support of exclusive games, you know, I fucking guarantee you they're cheering on Starfield right now. I promise you they are. I promise you they are cheering on Starfield right now. And at some point in time, they were likely shitting on people like me for basically saying that exclusives are pretty important. Like, actually, they matter quite a bit. I'm not saying that they're necessarily fair. I'm not saying that they're even ideal. But we don't live in a perfect world, right? To expect platform holders to decide, you know what, we don't want exclusive games. We don't want exclusive content because we just want to be the nice guys. That's not how things work. And even Xbox fans know this. Even Xbox fans who have tried so hard to make it seem like, you know, they're on the right side. The future of gaming. Opening doors. Letting more people in. Giving more people access to games. You know, falling for this bullshit that Microsoft feeds them. Right? Even they were saying back when Microsoft bought Bethesda that you don't spend $7.5 billion to not make your games exclusive. Absolutely. And here we are. So, is this going to impact PlayStation? Simply put, absolutely. And I look, guys, I notice my stream keeps, it keeps kind of staggering at certain points. I apologize for that. I know like the frames keep dropping randomly. You'll just have to deal with it. Unfortunately, I have to deal with it. The storm that came in, it just kind of messed the internet up a little bit. So if that happens, maybe just try to refresh the page or whatever. But is this going to, like, I know there are PlayStation fans who want to believe that Microsoft having a game Starfield exclusively is not going to affect PlayStation. You need to understand it is. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. I know that from the perspective of, maybe you're not so happy that Microsoft is out here buying publishers and making games exclusive. I get it. Like, it's a tactic, and it's not the most respectable tactic, but it's an effective one nonetheless, and it's clearly working. And so I totally understand that there are some PlayStation fans that don't want to hear that. But the truth of the matter is that this is the exact type of competition that some people were hoping to see. And I guess when we said that we want to see Microsoft compete, we want to see Microsoft actually give Sony competition, we didn't quite consider the different ways that could be achieved. Maggie D, you're saying one game? It's not just, well, that's the thing. It starts with one game. I'm not saying Starfield means that going forward, like every single year now, Xbox is going to be completely, right up there with Sony. No, but this is a start. And you have to consider the other big hitters that are going to come from Bethesda and what Microsoft's longer term plans might be if they do get Activision Blizzard when it comes to exclusivity. To me, it just seems kind of clear that that Sony is going to have to be paying closer attention this holiday season. How are the sales looking? They're going to look good no matter what, but like, are we noticing? Are we noticing that maybe the engagement is on our platform isn't as high as we thought it would be? What could cause that? I don't know. Maybe it's because people are going and they're buying Xboxes to play Starfield. They're subscribing to Game Pass to play Starfield. That's a reality. Sony has to now contend with it. And the reason why this is so interesting and I think good, again, I don't know that I respect the way Microsoft handled it. I don't know that I respect the way Microsoft handled it, but dude, this is going to 100% ensure that Sony's gonna bring out the fucking big guns sooner rather than later. And I don't know if people realize that. I'm sure some people do realize that. MBG, it's been a decade. PlayStation has huge mindshare at this point. Oh yeah, for sure. No. Don't listen. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. Saying, but I respect Sony for buying Final Fantasy. I never said I respected Sony for doing that. I never once said that. Sony securing Final Fantasy 16 as an exclusive, yeah, it's not the most respectable way to go about it. It's just not. You're paying to make a game exclusive. You're money hatting. But at the same time, just like with Microsoft buying their studios and making games exclusive, it is what it is, man. It's a part of the industry. It's just how it's always been. It's how it always will be. These companies are going to buy exclusives. And that's it. Sony's going to do it. Microsoft's going to do it. They're not exactly the same. To sit here and say that Sony securing Final Fantasy 16 exclusivity is the same as Microsoft buying all of Bethesda and locking all of their games up is the same is completely disingenuous. And frankly, anybody who's saying otherwise is a fool and a liar. That's just the reality. They're not the same. But in terms of, how respected is it? It's not respected. The most respectful thing a platform holder can do is make your own games. That's the most respectful thing a platform holder can do. But again, it's business. So it's not always about what's respectable and what's not. It's about what produces results and what doesn't. You know? But I just find these conversations with surrounding Xbox so funny, man. Where they, how, I just want to put this out here. Do you know how Xbox really did win back a shit ton of mindshare? Because that's what that person mentioned. They said, dude, Sony has massive amounts of mindshare. Microsoft not only won over a shit ton of mindshare, but they won over a lot of goodwill. And you know why? We have like proof of this right in front of our faces. Got an article here from VGC. Metaphor ReFantazio is also coming to PlayStation and Steam, Atlas confirms. Metaphor ReFantazio is also coming to PlayStation and Steam, announced for Xbox and Windows during Sunday's Xbox Game Showcase. The fantasy RPG is billed as the next game from the creative team behind the Persona series. Okay, I don't know why the hell that's all the article said, but yeah, so the reason why this is relevant, Microsoft pays for embargoes for these third-party games. The company that's all about bringing more games to everybody, right? Microsoft paid for multiple games, specifically Japanese games, to be embargoed. So what that means is when they're announced for Xbox, the companies that are making these games are not allowed to reveal, whether it's through, whether it's verbal, whether it's text, doesn't matter. They're not allowed to reveal that it's coming to PlayStation. And so what Microsoft is literally doing is trying to pay for these embargoes to try to trick people into convincing them that they're exclusive to Xbox. Now, let me ask you, do you think anybody has been pointing this out? Do you think anybody's been talking about this? No. Nope. But let me ask you, how shitty does that sound? Because you're talking about the same company, that being Microsoft and Xbox, that as soon as PlayStation's showcase ends, what did they do? They post a tweet saying, here are all the Xbox games that were revealed at the PlayStation showcase. And their fans went ballistic. This is what I'm talking about, man. Like, this idea that Microsoft isn't also just as shitty. They are very shitty. Like, they are petty as fuck, dude. And just because they smile and they laugh and they try to, put on a happy face and seem like such nice guys, it's just so funny to me, dude. And people fall for it like it's nothing. MBG, how many people were tricked into believing Hogwarts Legacy was PlayStation exclusive? No one would. Look, anybody who was tricked into believing that Hogwarts Legacy was a PlayStation exclusive are simply people who just watched advertisements. It is not Sony's job to advertise the fact that Hogwarts Legacy is available on Xbox. That's Microsoft's job. Now, granted, Microsoft can't just put out a trailer with an Xbox logo all over it, but they can let people know, hey, this game is coming to our platform. And WB can also, and they did make it clear that this game is available on every platform. When Hogwarts Legacy was announced at the PlayStation Showcase in 2020, there was no embargo on that game. Like, people knew immediately that this is coming to Xbox. I'm just saying, like, you're missing the point here, man. The point is, Microsoft is going out of their way to pay money to embargo these games, to trick people, to literally trick people in the week of their showcase that, yup, this is an exclusive. Could you fucking imagine if Sony did that shit? Like, if there was any game that Sony could have done that with and it would have worked super effectively, MGS3. Sony could have paid to embargo the MGS remake to convince people it's exclusive. But they didn't. Not saying that they're above that. I'm just saying that, this is something that Microsoft does that you could argue is very slimy, but no one cares, and it is what it is, man. Saying stop complaining. No, I'm not going to stop complaining. That's what I'm doing. I want to complain, at least for right now. Zero Connection, you're saying, well, I hope the ABK deal doesn't go through. I hope Microsoft Existential Studios do well. Competition is good. Stop Sony from being complacent. That's where we are right now, but I don't know, man. Something about this is a little off. You know what I mean? From what I could tell. What I mean by that is, like, I think we need to be very careful. We need to be very careful about that notion right there. That narrative. That what Microsoft is doing is good because it creates more competition. Keep in mind, I'm not saying it's an untrue narrative. I'm saying we need to be careful how much we buy into it, because that is true. Like, I've said it over and over again that it is great now that Sony is going to have to deal with the pressure of, you don't have Starfield. Microsoft just showed a bunch of first-party games. Like, my hope is that Sony is pissed off right now. My hope is that Sony's like, what the fuck? They just made our showcase look like a joke. We got to put on another one. We got to remind everybody. We're Sony, right? Like, that's what I want from Sony. That's what I hope this is done. But it is truly and genuinely disingenuous to believe that that's all this is about. And, you mentioned the ABK deal. You're saying, well, I hope the ABK deal doesn't go through. And then you mentioned competition and Sony not being complacent. That's the big problem here. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it's just when we're talking about this topic of, does PlayStation have serious competition from Xbox now? The answer is yes. It is. And Microsoft is planning to go well beyond that. Microsoft is planning to go well beyond that by buying Activision. So if Microsoft is competing with Sony now, all right, listen, I need to ask you guys and I'm genuinely trying to get an answer here. I see quite a few people in the chat saying no, that PlayStation does not have serious competition from Xbox now. Can you explain to me why? Like, can you give me the reasoning why you think they don't have competition? I'm just looking for a couple of counterpoints here. Saying one game does nothing to compete. They don't have a solid release for games. That's not true, though. We're not talking about one game. Starfield is the biggest game. Microsoft showed off like a bunch of games, and they have a roadmap for 2024. So I don't know what you mean by that. You're saying foreseeable competition, maybe, but Microsoft still hasn't shown results. That's true. I can get behind that reasoning. They need to actually prove it first. Like, you need to see it actually happen before your eyes. You need to see the competition happening, not just the promise of it. Okay, I can agree with that. That's fair. Yeah, I'm just curious to see some of the reasoning. I think that's probably the fairest reasoning right now, is like, if I were to say absolutely yes, PlayStation now is serious competition, but then somebody were to say, well, on paper they do, but in practice, do they really? So it kind of reminds me of like the build up to the Series X and the PS5, where on paper, everybody was like, dude, the Series X is going to crush the PS5. And in practice, literally the opposite happened. So Okay, I think that's a fair argument. I guess I'm just saying that, like, if the assumption is that in practice, right, after the show that Microsoft put on with Starfield, in practice, if they are going to be serious competition to PlayStation now, where does that leave Activision Blizzard? Jim Ryan's hiding in a cave right now. I don't know why, but that imagery is just too funny. Jim Ryan hiding in a cave. Yeah, he's like drying his tears with money. Sewell, you're saying this game is massive. Skip Persona MBG and play this SMT press turn system and mash up a Persona elements. 6-year wait. I might try it, man. I mean, that's the thing about this new Metaphor game is it's brand new, you know, so I can get it on the ground floor. I might try it. Lost Soul says, MBG, are you going green? I think it's funny that people interpret what I'm saying that way, because it literally couldn't be more of the opposite. Is that what people are picking up from what I'm saying? I hope not. I mean, it doesn't matter to me either way. It's just that's weird to me, because if that's what people are picking up from this, I don't know, man. They're going to be kind of disappointed. You're saying MBG is trying to be unbiased. I'm trying to, man, and it's hard because, oh man, like I'm just so, it's tough, man. I'm trying my best to be fair, but there are these times, like there's just these moments where it's like, dude, Microsoft, man, they just, I don't know if it's actually Microsoft or the Xbox like fanboys or something, but it's just like, I'm just trying to like get a good overhead view of what's happening right now. And I know that a lot of PlayStation fans don't want to hear this, you know? I know that there are PlayStation fans, and I know that that's why some people are like, oh, you're going green. Like, dude, it's just, look, Sony, I would be surprised at this point if Sony doesn't do something significant before the end of the year. Now, I want to add a caveat to that. All right? I want to add a caveat to that. When I say do something significant, I that could come in the form of, the significant thing that Sony could do is have just a state of play in August for Spider-Man, or in September, and it blows everybody away, and then they release Spider-Man and it blows everybody away, and then maybe it's up for like I'm not going to say Spider-Man 2 is going to win Game of the Year, but if it's like nominated for Game of the Year, and then Sony has like a couple of smaller announcements or something at the Game Awards, that could be Sony's answer for the rest of the year. And it could probably work for them. But I don't recall a time when it ever worked out this way. And this is just a matter of, I wish I could be a fly on the wall at like Sony HQ to just kind of see like what do they think right now? Because I know how the fans feel. And I like to think I usually have a pretty good read on the energy in the gaming community online anyway. And right now, dude, there's not a lot of energy for PlayStation. PlayStation fans are excited for the games that are coming, of course. But right now, PlayStation fans are like, this article I read from Forbes, Starfield feels like the first Xbox exclusive in ages that will pain PlayStation fans. The one thing about it that I think is absolutely true is that he says in the article that like the PlayStation fan base hasn't really had to experience this in like over a decade, probably well over a decade at this point. And that is kind of like seeing the main competitor, all eyes are on them, and now all the praise is for them. And I don't think Sony's had to deal with that for a long time either. And I guess the whole question here is like, Sony, they're not, you have to imagine that the leadership at Sony was probably always prepared for this moment. Like, they're not stupid. Like, they see the moves that Microsoft is making. And you have to imagine that at some point they were kind of like thinking, okay, but like, what do we do the day Xbox actually fucking does it? Do we just say, okay, they did it and there's nothing we can do about it and we're just going to stay our course? Or is Sony more likely to be like, we're going to see how it plays out, and if they actually do it, we're going to come out and we're going to remind people. We're going to go in even harder than we are. I don't know. This is the big question. Is Sony going to have another showcase this year? People keep asking me that. It's like, I wish I could give you a concrete answer, like yes or no. Wouldn't shock me. Wouldn't shock me at all at this point. Because it's like, yeah, dude, people are not happy with your showcase. People loved Xboxes. That's not normal. That's actually the opposite of how it's been going for Sony for years now. So I have to imagine that to some degree, Sony feels like they might have to do more. And from my perspective, that's not a bad thing. In fact, I've seen quite a few people so far, at least in my comment section from yesterday's video, somebody left a comment and they were like, I really hope Sony has a second showcase so they can announce like some of these games that we've been waiting to hear about and that we know are in development, and to just kind of like, bring back some of the excitement their way. And he said that he hopes it happens this year. And a lot of people were in agreement with that. And I think a lot of PlayStation fans right now are having a difficult time admitting that it's not about, like, I get it. You look at the obnoxious Xbox fanboys and they expect you to come out and say, holy shit, Sony just lost this generation. Starfield is going to shit all over anything PlayStation produces. It's over. Get rid of your PlayStation. Go buy an Xbox. It's over. I know that that's how a lot of them kind of behave on the online. And I can understand why, like, people who are big PlayStation fans, they see that and they immediately feel like, I got to get defensive because, that's whatever. But I think a lot of PlayStation fans actually are like kind of not sure, where it's like, damn, this is kind of weird, right? Like, when's the last time this is like, this is a strange situation where Starfield is now the center of the attention. Like, Starfield is being talked about a lot more right now anyway than Spider-Man 2. Unless you're talking, well, then again, today everybody's talking about Spider-Man 2 pre-orders because it was a nightmare. But that seems to be what's happening right now. Actually, you know what? Hold on. I want to retract that statement. That's an internet comment. That's a Twitter statement. That's a Twitter statement. I want to go check something real quick before I come to that conclusion. Starfield Direct gameplay deep dive, 1.9 million views. I guess I'm just trying to figure out, like, what's the viewership on this, man? Here comes Leia creeping in. Yeah, that I think saying Spider-Man 2 is sold out. I doubt the actual game is sold out. Saying it has 3.2 million views, maybe more now. Spider-Man has over 20 million views. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You can't argue with those numbers. You know what this might be? The more I think about it, I think this might just be that. God, I hate to say this because it just. At this point, I am a broken record, and I apologize. But I'm trying to think what else it could be, but I really think it's just exactly what I'm about to say once again. I think this is the result of Sony just not showing a roadmap, dude. Because I'm sitting here thinking, like, yeah, that's true, man. Like, Spider-Man has over 20 million combined views. Like, this shit's gonna fucking murder. You know? Like, it's gonna murder. Final Fantasy 16's coming out, and that's probably gonna murder too. And I'm like, I'm just saying everything, like, but things feel oddly quiet. And I think that's just the realization that's like, dude, it's the same problem. You're sitting here, like, I'm sitting here basically faced with the same issue and conundrum that I was literally 3 weeks ago. And that is, you don't have a roadmap, bro. God damn it, Sony. All right, here we go. Here's the conclusion that I've come to today. Does PlayStation have serious competition from Xbox? I don't know that I care, other than if Microsoft just produced enough competition to force Sony to give us a roadmap, that's all I care about. There we go. Boom. Stream's over. I'll catch you guys later. Take care. No, I'm just kidding. That's it. That's the answer. Jay Pierce, you're saying MBG, remember when they were saying that PlayStation has developers make sure games run at 60 FPS, but games that are exclusive for Xbox still don't run at 60 FPS? Yeah, dude, Sony did really make a big deal about that earlier in the generation, and they haven't talked about it much lately, but that's going to be pretty funny. You know, that's like an easy win for Sony right now. It's not like a look, it's not, if Sony were to come out and have like this kind of snarky post where it's like Spider-Man 2 40 frames per second in fidelity mode if you want that, 60 FPS performance mode, we got a 60 FPS ray tracing mode, we got a 120 mode. They have like the whole thing for Spider-Man 2. They covers the whole gamut. But, you know, there's gonna be a lot of people that are like, take that, Microsoft, take that, Starfield. And, you know, it is a little bit silly because it's like, well, they're two very different games, and people are gonna butt heads and they're gonna argue and they're gonna be like, but the reality is, no matter which way you cut it, man, like, that's if Sony announces that, coming off of Microsoft basically having to announce that, you know, our big first party tentpole title this year is only going to be at 30 frames. A lot of people are okay with that, as we've established, but it's just that's going to be a pretty, I'd say, pretty good win for Sony, because like them still being able to hold on to that, it kind of it'll balance things out even more, right? And I'm waiting to see when or if they announce that. You have to imagine they're going to at some point. So yeah, you're right, Jay. They definitely they definitely did put an emphasis on that earlier on, and I think that's probably going to continue. Matt York, member for 16 months, you're saying, I really think Microsoft needs more than Starfield to even hold a candle here. They would need to announce 5 bangers for me to even consider biting. And that's fair too, man. You know, I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion. Like, it's really, see, this is why it's tough for me, man, because like part of my job here with my channel is to pay attention to what not necessarily people are saying, but what are the general conversations that are happening right now? Like, what, you know, what's the flavor of the day, so to speak? And I don't know. I guess I do question, like, because again, like a lot of people, my instinctive reaction based off of just initial like gut read from what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing is, yeah, Microsoft is going to compete now, right? But there are a lot of people that still say to me, even in my chat, they're like, dude, no, they're not there yet, man. Like, they're far from there. And a lot of people kind of have this, it's not an arrogant or cocky attitude. It's just like a more like, dude, Sony's not going to be, Microsoft is not going to catch up to Sony that quickly and that easily. It's going to take a lot more. And that makes me wonder, like, is this like, am I basically buying in without even realizing it? Am I buying into the fanboy rhetoric? Like, is that notion right there, the notion that suddenly Microsoft competes, suddenly Microsoft is, not necessarily on top, but now Microsoft is about to make a comeback. They did make a comeback. Starfield's going to be the biggest game of the year, and Sony is just, they're going to struggle, man. And the reason why I'm trying so hard to figure that out is because I feel like if I can figure that out, I'll have my answers to like what Sony is likely to do next. Because here's how I see it. If the truth really is that while Xbox did have a good showcase, a very good showcase, and Starfield looks like a very good game, and a lot of people are very excited about it, and it's given Microsoft certainly good momentum and good word of mouth, the reality is this hasn't moved the needle very much at all. And Sony is still kind of just like way, way, way out there, and Microsoft's nowhere to be found. If that's actually where it is right now, then that to me would mean that Sony's likely not going to do much else this year. Like that they're less inclined to have another showcase. They're less inclined to show a roadmap because there's still no reason for them to. However, if a lot of what I'm reading and a lot of what I'm seeing and hearing, like I said, is true, if that's the truth, that actually, no, dude, this showcase from Xbox was so good and Sony's was so poor that now, and Starfield's so big that now the scales are now evening out just like that. Like just like that, they have competition. Then I do think that makes it much more likely that Sony will actually react and do something because they'll feel the pressure like they have to. And I'm still kind of torn on this and seeing the fact that there are many people even here on my channel that seem relatively torn. Like I said, I keep seeing both sides. I keep seeing people saying, yes, Microsoft is absolutely competing with Sony now. And I see people saying, no, they still got a lot of work to do. You're saying MBG living off of Twitter hype, LOL. Well, I mean there's no doubt that a lot of it does come from Twitter, but I don't really know where else to gauge it, That's what's tough. And I guess like that's a good way to try to figure it out. Like look at the numbers, right? Like what are the look at the viewership. How many views did PlayStation Showcase get? How many views does Spider-Man 2 have? Now compare that, how many views does Xbox's Showcase have? How many views does Starfield have? And I feel like that might help maybe significantly in kind of allowing me to see more clearly, like, oh, okay. So actually, yeah, I do want to see what is the Xbox Showcase at viewership-wise? 3.1 million. That's actually pretty good. That's actually pretty damn good. That's higher than I expected. So if I compare that to the PlayStation Showcase, let me see. PlayStation Showcase is at 4.7. Oof, that's close, dude. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sony still has quite, they have a lot more views, but that's closer than I expected. Is it just me? So, Xbox Showcase has 3.1 million views. PlayStation Showcase 4.7. It's also worth noting that PlayStation Showcase was a lot shorter in length and still has more views. So there is that. I don't know. Man. Just trying to figure this stuff out. That's why I gotta say, like, if you can't tell, I'm really eager to see what happens come this holiday. Because that's gonna be, I think that's gonna be the most telling thing, right? Like we're gonna have a much, much, much clearer vision of like, just really how big of a deal Starfield's gonna be and how well Spider-Man 2 is gonna do. And I'm very excited to see that because that's the thing, man. It's like they're either competing or they're not. Which is it? They're either competing or they're not. Panthorium, you're saying Final Fantasy 16 physical copies are being delivered early. Watch out for spoilers. Yeah, that's true, guys. You got to be on the lookout. Apparently, people are receiving their copies. Now, I ordered mine physically. I would love if I got my copy early. That'd be awesome. But I'm never that lucky, so I don't expect that. But thank you for the heads up, Panthorium. And Perfect Image, you're saying, key point, Sony talks about streaming PS1 through PS4 works, PS5. Yeah, Sony seems to be getting much more serious about cloud and trying to beef up their streaming game. And yeah, I don't think that's just going to be for PS5. I think that's going to be for everything. For any games that you can stream, I think they're beefing it up quite a bit. Skips, you're saying people are in denial if they think Microsoft is not competing. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree somewhat. Like, it's difficult to say that people are in denial because it's like, oh my God, my cats are going berserk. It's difficult to say that people are in denial. I just think that there's two different types of people. I think that there are people who feel sold already, like, hell yeah. Like, we have to keep in mind that it's not. All right, here we go. Let me put it this way. There is still a very large factor, a key differentiating factor that separates Sony and Microsoft right now in this moment. I'm not talking about September. I'm not talking about next year. I'm talking about right here, right now. There is a large key separating factor that I do believe when I mentioned earlier in this stream, I mentioned how everybody gets fixated on the big shiny thing in front of their face. Ooh, look at the big shiny. Look at the new games. Look at the big, the big reveals and the trailers and the gameplay, and that's fine. And that's normal. I'm not saying it's not normal. It is. But the big key differentiating factor between Sony and Microsoft right now, and it will remain this way until Starfield releases, is that Sony has a track record of delivering. And when I say a track record, I'm not talking about 2 or 3 games. I'm talking about a plethora of games. Like a generation and a half worth of games, practically. Not to say that they haven't had their hiccups or their roadblocks and that everything's been perfect. I'm not saying that. I know that's how some people interpret what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's been perfect, but they have a very, very, very strong track record. And the consistency has been unrivaled. Xbox also has a track record. It just so happens that Xbox's track record has been to screw up more often than not. Has Microsoft's track record been completely garbage? No. They've had some good games. It's just the problem is they're so far and few in between, and they have been, and a lot of their good games would be considered like smaller games, which there's nothing wrong with that either. But a lot of people did not view that as competition. And I think right now, if we're talking just about having a showcase, showing games, showing trailers, getting people excited based off of that, then in a way, yeah, we could come to the conclusion that Xbox still isn't competing yet. They've only completed 50%. Like if this was like a loading bar, right? It's only 50% done. There's another 50% that they got to complete before we're good to go. And Sony doesn't apply to Sony. And that's not a fanboy thing. That's just how it works, man. It's like when people look at Spider-Man 2, they have a really good framework. They have a really good, I guess you could say, just path that leads to Spider-Man 2. That they can look back and they can clearly see what has come before it from Sony. and they can feel like, oh yeah, we're good. And I think that, because that's the thing, like I'm trying to figure out like there's a lot of people that are still utterly confident in Sony. Like there are people who they have not lost any confidence in Sony, even though they didn't like the showcase and they thought it wasn't as good as it should have been, even though Xbox just had a great showcase, even though people are losing their mind over Starfield, there's still people, and I think they're getting labeled fanboys, and that's fine, but I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, what about, like, what is it? What about PlayStation? What about this whole scenario? Like, why are there still so many people that are like just totally their confidence isn't shaken? You're saying those are apologists? I don't know about that, man. It depends on what their reasoning is. If somebody just says, well, Sony never loses, then it's like, okay, well, I don't know what to say to that. But if somebody were to say to me that, it's like, dude, like, look, man, I have no reason to believe that Sony is going to fail to deliver and fail to continue to do as good as they've been doing. In fact, I have every reason to believe that the path forward looks pretty clear. And that's kind of the ironic aspect, right? Is that like the part that is torn, like there's kind of this rift between me and a certain portion of the PlayStation fan base, is there's a portion of the PlayStation fan base that basically says to me like, dude, why are you in such a rush to get Sony's roadmap, man? Like they will show you the roadmap and the games when they're ready. It's not a big deal, man. Like just look at what they have right now and that's, in front of you. And the reason for that is because, hey, there's no reason to stress. Once Sony does show that roadmap, once Sony does decide to quote unquote react, right? It'll be fine. But that's just it. I guess it's like, are we sure about that though? And I guess that's like the only part of me that still kind of questions things is that, but that's not. I had that exact attitude going into the last showcase. And it didn't work that way. You know what I mean? But then again, it's like, I don't know, does Sony get some credit? Because it's like, okay, well, they had like, one showcase that just, it didn't live up. Does that mean everything else is for naught? Was it all for naught? It's like, well, no, that's not fair either. So, yeah, it's an interesting thing. Spider-Man, it says your message was retracted. So I'm not sure what you said. I apologize. I wasn't able to get to it in time. I don't know why it was retracted. I guess you manually retracted that. But either way, thank you for the $5 super chat, man. I appreciate it. And Vino, you're saying, I think we can all agree it's nice that Xbox and Sony fans both have games to look forward to this holiday. Hope this is the beginning of the Xbox comeback. Yeah, well, that right there is something that I think everybody can easily agree on. I think everybody can just agree on the fact that, no one's going to be left out this holiday. Sony and Microsoft both had their fan bases covered. I don't know if Nintendo has a big holiday release, but either way, they had, Tears of the Kingdom recently. So yeah, you're on point about that. Is this the start of the big Xbox comeback? I don't know, bro. You tell me. I have no idea. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Saying cancel your pre-orders now. Final Fantasy couldn't hit 40 FPS. Bro, how do you have a membership badge, man? Like, all you do is just troll. Dude, I swear, man, there are these people that, the people who get gifted membership badges are the ones who are here the most. And there's just some of these people, they're just like here the most to just troll. It's like, bro, come on now. Cancel your pre-order. You know what, man? I'm not even going to cancel my pre-order. I'm going to do that. I'm going to sell my PlayStation. I'm taking down all this stuff on my walls. I'm framing a poster of Phil Spencer and a poster of Matt Booty. And I'm going to get an Xbox Series X and an Xbox Series S. And I'm going to get the collector's edition of Starfield if they're still available. I'm going to cancel my Spider-Man 2 collector's edition. That's it, man. I'm getting rid of this shirt and I'm getting the same shirt in green. That's what's happening. Because clearly that's what needs to happen. Right? Go red. I ain't going green. I'm going red. We'll see, man. I won't lie. The thing that's I think really tough for me at this point, truthfully, is just that I won't yeah, it has been a tough pill to swallow, man. And I know that there are people out there like making fun of PlayStation fans and whatnot, because it's like, damn, PlayStation fans taking L after L and yada yada yada. It's like I get it, dude, but I think, yeah, if I have to just be totally honest, I do hope Sony reacts, man. I think a part of me just kind of wants to try to buy into the Xbox hype. You know, and I get like people interpret that like, oh, MBG's going green. Like, no, man. I know there are people that are like, you're gonna buy an Xbox, you're gonna go play. Like, no, I'm not. I still don't care enough, man. Like I rewatched that Fable trailer. I rewatched that Avowed trailer. You know, I rewatched that Hellblade trailer. I'm just like, that's cool, man. That's cool, but I'm fine. I'm good. I really am. It's just right now, all I really want, I think truthfully is I want to kind of like buy in to the Xbox hype and that side of the discussion, because I guess a part of me thinks that like if it's true, then Sony's gonna have to, yeah, they're gonna do more like sooner. And yeah, that's just kind of where I am right now. I know a lot of people are like, dude, you MBG, you're too rambunctious, man. You're too eager. You don't have enough patience. That's true. I admit that's true. Saying Final Fantasy 16 talk, please, man. I would talk more about, but right now there's not much else to say other than like, dude, I'm just patiently waiting for the game to drop and for me to get my physical copy and play it. You know, like I really wish I had more to say about it right now. The hype is there. I'm excited, you know. I'm probably gonna play it in performance mode. Like if I go to play it in performance mode and I actually begin to notice like some serious like, oh damn, like this is really struggling or something, and I notice it, then maybe I'll drop it down to fidelity. But again, I played the demo in performance and it was perfectly fine for me. It's perfectly fine. Let me get rid of. I don't know why this is up right now. I got a couple things up here right now. Let me see. I have another article here. A new early Forza Motorsport comparison video was shared online, putting the game by turn 10 side by side with another racing game juggernaut, Polyphony Digital's Gran Turismo 7, highlighting the visual differences between the two games. The video, which was put together by El Analista de Bits, uses the latest Forza Motorsport footage shown during this week and attempts to compare it with similar scenarios recreated in GT7. While Forza Motorsport seems to have the edge in several scenarios, despite it still being a few months away from its release, it is really impressive what Polyphony Digital achieved with its latest game, considering it's a cross-gen release that couldn't take full advantage of the PS5 hardware. And that's it. Okay, that's the article. I thought there was more to it, but that's the article, bro. All right, well, there you go. GT7, I guess, is holding its... I thought that article was going to be more interesting. GT7 holding a cross-gen game, holding its own against Forza, which is a current-gen only title. I mean, they're racing games, you know? Like, I think no matter what, you're gonna get a good-looking game. You know? You're gonna get a good-looking game. I don't think anybody's going into... gonna buy Forza or GT7 and walk away being like disappointed. I just don't see that happening. Let me see. So, new confirmed locations in Marvel Spider-Man 2: Queens, Brooklyn, Coney Island, the Emily May Foundation. Huh. That's actually, I thought it was just Queens and Brooklyn. All right. I'll take that. Okay, so Let me see here. This made me laugh. Some people thought that Ben's studio was teasing Days Gone 2 again, but they're not. They put out this post that says fueled up and ready to hit the broken road. And it was this, I don't know who this person is. I think they're like a musician, and it's like a famous musician, and they put her on like Deacon St. John's motorcycle and like kind of made her look a little bit, dressed up like a biker. And she is apparently the latest PlayStation Playmakers announcement. And this has led people to be like, yo, they're teasing Days Gone 2. They're teasing Days Gone 2. And it's like, no, they're not. For some reason, Ben's studio and Sony continue to do all of these Days Gone related things, even though they have no plans of doing literally anything with Days Gone or a sequel. It's kind of weird. Like, I kind of don't blame people for seeing it that way, but it was just kind of funny to me. If anything, it just goes to show, man, that people still really want Days Gone 2. Like, they really, really want Days Gone 2. It's a shame that it's not happening at all. I would have loved to see Days Gone 2. Makes me think, man, like, a lot of people seem to have expressed disappointment in the fact that Ben Studio's new game, Ben Studio has a new IP that's being revealed eventually, and it's going to have some multiplayer elements. And I think like a lot of people have expressed like serious disappointment in that, but I get the feeling, I could be wrong. I don't have any inside source on this. I wish I did, but my intuition tells me that the multiplayer elements that are going to be there is going to be like co-op. Because I think when people read like multiplayer, they think it's going to be like some kind of PvP thing. I don't think so. I think it's going to be co-op. That's exactly what I'm thinking, dude. Because if I'm not mistaken, the sequel to Days Gone, when they were originally planning for it, was supposed to have co-op. So I don't mind that, dude. Like, I like having co-op in games. We don't need co-op in every game. Like, I saw some people were disappointed that like Spider-Man 2 doesn't have co-op. It's like, nah, we don't need it. We don't need it. But for some games, it can be pretty cool. Jonathan Kane, thank you so much for the $10 super chat, man. You're saying my main concern is what Sony showed. I'm not really interested in live service games like Marathon and Fair Games. Even if we got gameplay, those concepts don't interest me. Need to see different games. Yeah, you know what? I will tell you this. I'm in agreement with you. Like, the difference between me and you, Jonathan, is that I think if we saw gameplay for like one of those games, there's a decent chance I would have been interested in it. Like if we saw Marathon gameplay or if we saw Concord gameplay, maybe I would be interested in. Who knows? Maybe even Fair Games. But what I will say is that, we speculated a lot. I speculated a lot after PlayStation Showcase when everybody was like, they got to do a second showcase, right? Like, they got to be doing a second showcase this year. And I'm like, well, what would be the reason for them to do that? What would be the reason for Sony to hold back, right? Because like that's what people kept saying. They're like, Sony's holding back. And I know it became like kind of a meme and people were making fun of it. But it's like, the truth is, like, look at their studios, man. Like, and look at how many studios they have. Look at how many games they have in development. Look at what they showed up with at their showcase. Like, they're 100% holding back. And it's either because they're holding back because they need to, like these games aren't ready to show, or they're just holding back because, again, some people believe they're going to have another show. Well, it's fascinating because prior to Xbox's showcase, we talked about like, well, that could be one reason they decide to hold back, right? It could be that they want to see, okay, we're going to put on a show. We're going to show Spider-Man. We're going to show some of these live service games and a lot of third-party games. People don't realize this. Some people do, but not everybody's aware. Sony has to put on shows at a regular cadence for their partners. A lot of people made fun of the PlayStation Showcase because they're like, dude, that was basically a third-party showcase with Spider-Man. Well, yeah, because that's the thing. Like, Sony has to fulfill obligations to their third parties to put on these shows so, they can show these games off. It's just something they have to do. It is entirely possible that Sony decided we have to put on the show now, and sooner rather than later, we need to fulfill our obligations for our third-party partners. We'll show off some of these live service games, CG trailers, and we'll finally show some Spider-Man 2 gameplay. But when it comes to like the big heavy hitting like first party showcase that's going to blow everybody away, that's going to have to happen in a later time. Well, we speculated that maybe one of the reasons is because Sony wants to see Microsoft's hand, right? Sony wants to see what is Microsoft going to show. Well, we saw it, and we're seeing how people are reacting to it. So, we're going to find out, man. We're going to find out. Because if Sony really was holding back for that reason, then they're going to get ready to come back out again. And, I'd be very, very interested to see what a second PlayStation showcase would look like. Because something tells me that if Sony did do a second showcase this year, it's not going to look anything like their first one. MBG, you really believe Sony has a counter move? Well, it really depends on just how confident Sony really is. Because, like, for all I know, Sony views Spider-Man 2 as their counter move. Like, that could be the mindset and mentality that Jim Ryan has, where he's like, dude, we have Spider-Man. I don't care that we don't have Starfield. I don't, we have Spider-Man, and that's going to be more than enough to win back everybody. And maybe, I don't know, there is kind of an argument to be made that it's like, I know people there's some people that try to downplay Spider-Man 2, but it's like, this game's going to be huge, man. Like, very, very big. It's one of the biggest heavy hitters out there. Not to say Starfield isn't, but I'm just saying, like, Spider-Man 2 will absolutely hold its own no matter what. So Sony could just be looking at that as like, and that's all we need. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I can't get a proper read on Sony anymore. I really, really can't. And I think that a lot of people wish they could. Like, I want to come out and I want to say, like, dude, Sony is going to absolutely shake the industry this year. Like they are going to come out and they saved the best for last, and they purposely held back all these major first party reveals, and they're going to shock and all. And that's all anybody's going to be talking about. I don't know. Like, I want to believe that. I want to have that confidence and say, yeah, that's what's happening. But I don't feel entirely confident. And you could argue maybe that's just Sony doing a good job. If that really is Sony's plan, they've done a good job hiding that and not making it obvious. But the one thing that I still think about, and why I think we could be in for a major surprise this year, is Sony has done 2 showcases in 1 year before. Back in 2020, they did a showcase in June, and they did a second one in September. And that second one they did in September is where they revealed God of War Ragnarok for the first time, and people lost their minds. Perfect Image, you're saying Hip Hop Gamer knows Sony's roadmap. What's he saying? Did he say there's going to be a second showcase? I mean, I'll be honest, I don't really follow Hip Hop Gamer, but it's interesting because his name pops up from time to time, and it just seems like he like, I don't know, man. He gets around in the industry, so I think he's been correct about some things before, but just some of the things he's been correct about, like, they came out so much later after he said it. I don't know. Wrestling Mark, you're saying a second showcase? Come on, bro. Well, hey, man, look, I'm not saying it's going to happen. Saying Hip Hop Gamer also said Sony's showcase was going to be crazy. Yeah, so that's where it gets kind of tough. you know. You have to admit though, Sony did surprise everybody. Sony did surprise everybody. Sony has to know that. And when I say surprise everybody, like they surprised everybody that, dude, no one went into their show this year thinking it was going to be mid. No one. Like everybody fully expected this is going to be huge. It has to be. This is the big one. And it just wasn't. So I don't know, man. I just feel like as a PlayStation fan, I'm somewhat left in the dark. Kind of. Like it's not completely dark. It's just dim, you know? Or maybe a better way to explain it is like I feel like I can only see like a little bit ahead of me. But everything else is just I can't make it out. Because I can't deny that the rest of 2023 looks really good for Sony. And it looks good for Microsoft as well. And this year, for gaming in general, looks really, really, really good. But you know, when it comes to PlayStation, dude, I don't know. I don't have any inclination of just really what Sony's going to try to achieve after Spider-Man. You know, we could speculate, and we have, and we will continue to do that. MBG, deep down, you know Sony is done for this year. Yeah, man. Do people really think, like, come on, that you can't, like, I know you're trolling, but, like, you don't actually think that, right? Like, that, I know people are trolling, but it's like, I do think there are some people who actually think that. It's like, I don't know, like, why would you think that? What is giving you that indication? Geronimo 15 says, we all want a roadmap, MBG. We definitely do. I feel a little bit greedy for saying that. Like, I know, it's tough, dude. I won't lie. A part of me does feel a little bit bad because even Xbox's Matt Booty, everybody loves his name, he even recently said in an interview that, like, people need to realize that AAA games these days take like 4 to 6 years to make at minimum. That's just how it is. And I know it's easy to like listen to somebody from Xbox say that and be like, well, that's an excuse or whatever. But it is true. And I do feel a little bit bad because it's like, I always am eager for like the next thing, like show me the next thing, announce the next thing. And there's always just this kind of like conundrum where it's like, well, we can technically announce this game, but it's going to be out like 5 years from now or 4 years from now. And then people complain that like, man, why are you announcing things so early? I don't want to wait. And it creates just this kind of like, what do we do? Do we hold it back and wait till it's ready? Do we announce it early, give people a roadmap, but they got to wait? And so, you know, I'm trying my best to not come off like too impatient. Because look, man, I know there are people right now who are caught up in the zeitgeist. You know, Microsoft Showcase, Starfield, so on and so forth. I get that, but I mean, Sony's second half is locked in, dude. You know, like I don't think everybody's fully aware of just how big Final Fantasy 16 and Spider-Man 2 are. Like Final Fantasy 16 and Spider-Man 2 are two of the biggest games that are going to launch on the PlayStation platform this entire generation. Not this year, this entire generation. And I know that people want to like make comparisons where it's like, well, is Final Fantasy 16 going to be as big as Starfield? Is Spider-Man 2 going to be as big as Starfield? It's like, I don't think you're quite understanding that it doesn't matter and it doesn't need to be. Like, it doesn't matter which one's slightly bigger than the other. These are like Final Fantasy 16 and Spider-Man 2. They're only releasing on PS5 this year. Spider-Man 2 is probably going to stay on PS5 for a couple years. You know, it's when I think about that in a more calm, reasonable manner. I won't lie. It makes me realize, like, yeah, I don't I don't know. I want Sony to come out and kick ass, man. I want Sony to come out and flex that first party, But I don't know that they feel like they need to, bro. I really don't feel like. I don't know. Does PlayStation have serious competition from Xbox? I guess we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out real soon. Yo, I have a question for you guys. Jack has a question for me. Are you a calm and reasonable YouTuber? Yes. When the moment calls for calm and reasonable. Man, God of War Ragnarok, what a great game. What a great game. One of the best games I ever played, man. I have a question for you guys, though. And this will probably be the last question I ask today, but I'm just curious. So, like, not to rehash the PlayStation Showcase, I don't know if the reason why I want to ask this is because I feel like I've talked more than anybody probably on planet Earth about the PlayStation Showcase. And I don't know if I asked this question, but Jonathan, your super chat kind of brought it into my mind where it's like, how would we have felt if Sony came with one more game from first party and it was a new single player game, like let's just say Ghost of Tsushima 2, or if not Ghost of Tsushima 2, replace that with Sony Ben's game, or if not Sony Ben, maybe Sony Santa Monica, just a new big AAA, like more single player type game. And they showed a CGI trailer for that. How much of a difference would that have made to this show? Like if we got like a Ghost of Tsushima 2 CGI trailer, how big of a difference would that have made? Saying it would have been better, but still insufficient. See, that's interesting to me. Better than what we got. You'd rather have a steak and lobster than 20 tacos. Yeah, so all right, now let me ask a follow-up question. How much would of a difference would it have made if we got, instead of a Ghost of Tsushima CGI trailer, it was a full-blown trailer with a little bit of gameplay shown off? Just a little bit. Like one of those trailers that's a mix of story and gameplay. How big of a difference would that have made? Titus Crow says a lot. Ninja Shrimp says better. Snitch says huge. Another Sackbag says huge. Interesting. Yeah, I'm just wondering because like I was just kind of thinking like, I'm sure Sony is aware that their show was lacking these types of things. Like I don't think they're dumb. Like I'm sure they knew like people are not going to be thrilled about these 3 CGI trailers. It does make me wonder that like maybe this is the way it's going to be going forward. And by that I mean maybe going forward it's going to be a scenario where not just we've gotten conditioned to just be so excited for every PlayStation showcase. And the assumption is that every PlayStation showcase is going to be just like colossal. Like it's going to knock it out of the park. And maybe what we just experienced is like the first kind of like sobering moment. It's like actually they can't all be that great. And we could maybe end up seeing this kind of cadence where it's like, I don't want to say like one showcase is bad, one showcase is good. One showcase is bad, one showcase is good. But just that, like, you know, it's so funny to me, like how easy it would be right now for Sony to put on a better showcase where it's like you have more time now. And when you construct that showcase, you can show another CG trailer, but you also have to show, you could just show another gameplay trailer. Like you could show a Ghost of Tsushima, announced trailer that teases a little bit of gameplay. You could show a CG trailer for Sony Ben's new IP, right? And then after that, maybe you can do, I don't know, a new Astro game, just something like that. I don't know. It just got me thinking, like how big of a difference something like that would have made. But I guess we'll never know. But guys, I will tell you right now that obviously I've completely run out of things to talk about today. I have actually a pretty important thing to say at the end here, actually. And this is very relevant, I think, to all of my viewers and anybody who regularly watches my content. So you've probably noticed this week that I had a pretty strict routine. And there's a reason for that. I wanted to experiment, and I decided I wanted to do a stream Monday through Friday. And I also wanted to do a video Monday through Friday. I should have a video going out later. Although I'm not entirely sure if that video is going to be ready to go out or not. So that video might not drop today. I have to check to see. But that's kind of what I was striving for. But I guess I just want to say, like, I don't know. I'm sure some people have gotten kind of used to that. And again, it was experimental. So going forward, I don't know if the routine is going to stay that exact same way. The reason being is I don't know. I don't know that it is justified. I don't know that I can stream Monday through Friday and have enough topics, I guess, to discuss, really. Because I kind of noticed that, like, with a lot of these streams, some of the topics become way overly redundant. And I'm sure you guys have noticed that. And I know a lot of people don't care. Like, I know that there are plenty of people here that I could stream every day, all day, talking about the same thing. And, people that would still hang out with me and chill. And that's very cool. I appreciate that. But I've noticed even myself, like, I can tell I'm becoming like a bit overly redundant with some of the things. And so I just wanted to kind of experiment and see, especially because this was a bit of a slower week. Because I've kind of always had this issue where it's like, I want to have a more streamlined schedule that people can rely on. Because I know that makes it easier for the viewer. Like, it's easier for the viewer to know these are the days MBG's streaming and this is the time he's streaming. These are the days MBG's uploading a video, and this is the time he's releasing his video. But the big problem I always run into with that type of like schedule is that because of the nature of my channel and what I choose to talk about and cover, it's like you never know, man. You never know what's going to happen, and it's impossible to know, like, on any given week or any given day. And yeah, so I don't know. I guess I just wanted to mention that here. For the people who've gotten I guess totally, completely used to this schedule this week, just keep in mind, it will probably continue to fluctuate as the days and weeks go by. So, don't like freak out or anything if it's like, oh my God, MBG's not streaming tomorrow. What's happening? Nothing like that. All right. And before we head out here, we have Zombie Dragon coming in. Zombie Dragon coming in, dropping another membership gift. That brings us up. What does that bring us up to today? To a total of 9 memberships today. Does anybody else want to get in on this membership train before I head out? We could end it at 9. That's fine. We could end it at 10. That would be cool, but it's up to you guys if you want to keep it going or not. But thank you for that, Zombie Dragon. I appreciate. I think it was Jay Pierce and Hellbound, both of you guys, with the stream that I did earlier. You guys, yeah, and there comes Hellbound. Thank you, Hellbound. See, Hellbound comes back, brings us up to 10. Round us off. Appreciate that, dude. Yeah, Hellbound, Jay Pierce, and Zombie Dragon, you guys have continued to gift memberships, and Yeah, you did some work today, so I appreciate that, guys. And I also want to give a big thank you to everybody who donated super chats. Really appreciate that as well. There were a couple of super chats on the stream that ended up getting destroyed by the storm. So shout out to you guys as well. And yeah, yeah, Hellbound's cat, bro. Love that picture. All right, guys. Yeah, that's gonna do it for the stream. Shout out to Devil Shooter for Devil Shooter's been doing timestamps for pretty much all the streams. He's been an absolute beast. So if you see Devil Shooter in the comment section of these streams with the timestamps, give him a big thank you. He's definitely putting in some work for this community here. So yeah, definitely thank him if you see him. And that does it, guys. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their Friday, and we will see. We will see what the coming days and weeks have in store for us when it comes to PlayStation and gaming in general. So, all right, guys, that does it. Take care, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.